But on the entrepreneur side, it also gives you more opportunities in terms of how to raise money. If 10 of you want to go to Detroit, for example, and buy a $10,000 house, I'm just throwing an example out there, and everybody puts their 1,000 in per token, then you've got you got a deal there, So yeah. So let's talk about the benefits a little bit here. So Deloitte talks about the new token economy offering the potential for a more efficient and fair financial world by greatly reducing the friction involved in the creation, buying, and selling of securities. They see 4 key advantages that tokenization provides for both investors and sellers. The first is greater liquidity. So by tokenizing the asset, especially private securities or typically illiquid assets such as fine art, these tokens can be traded. I'm sorry, somebody has feedback. If everybody can mute, please. These tokens can be traded on the secondary market of the issuer's choice. This access to a broader base of traders increases the liquidity, benefiting investors who consequently have more freedom, and sellers because the tokens benefit from the liquidity premium, thereby capturing greater value from the underlying asset. All this means is typically what would happen is you would buy real estate, like I said, and unless all 10 people agreed that they want to sell, or let's say you're the only person that owns it, somebody still has to come and buy it. You're waiting for the one person to come and buy it. Tokenization helps you actually put that asset or the token of that asset on the secondary market and sell it a lot more quickly. So it's greater liquidity. Second thing is faster and cheaper transactions. So one of the great things with blockchain and smart contracts, and all a smart contract is it's a computer program that says, if A happens, then I want you to do B. If C happens, then I want you to do D. So what happens is there are these trigger actions that happen, and the smart contract automatically says, hey, this happened, therefore I'm going to automatically do this. So because of that, you don't have to have a lot of middlemen involved with smart contracts. You're able to reduce the administrative burden involved in buying and selling with fewer intermediaries needed, leading to not only faster deal execution, but also lower transaction fees. The third benefit is transparency. A security token is capable of having the token holder's rights and legal responsibilities embedded directly onto the token, along with an immutable record of ownership. And all immutable means is that it cannot be changed. So once it's determined that you are an owner of that, it cannot be changed, like somebody going back retroactively and changing it versus databases of today, which can be changed potentially. It's more accessible. This is another benefit of tokenization, because tokenization opens up investment in assets to a much wider audience, including all of us, thanks to reduced minimum investment amounts and periods. Tokens are highly divisible, meaning investors can purchase tokens that represent incredibly small percentages of the underlying asset. So with that, I want to open it up to my panel here for discussion.
I want to challenge more accessible. So a lot of the research I did referenced the fact that tokenization is usually filed with the SEC under Reg D. And Reg D is for accredited investors, and they only can let 35 unaccredited into a deal. So I challenge the more accessible because that's not what the research is revealing how people file. And Eric, I don't know if you can speak better to that, because I know this is your space, but I found that to be very, very interesting and discouraging at the same time.
It's a great example. I think in July 10th of this year, Blockstack was the first one to truly be able to do this. It was SEC compliant. and it was Reg A Plus, I think, is that what it's called? And they were the first to do it without a Reg D. So again, and that's truly now the precedent use case for it is Blockstack. And it comes at different points in time. And again, that's the accessibility of who and what and where, and how do you open it up to that? But again, they had an ongoing, I would say, conversation with the SEC to ensure that under that reg that they were able to do this and successfully be compliant and also have that offering available. So, and it was, and like I said, that it set the precedent right now. So we're moving into the accessibility. I don't think it just off the rip came off as that, but we're moving slowly and surely. And then again, we're talking about platforms becoming also enabling those regs to also be chosen for that, because again, they have their due diligence to do on their side, and how that equity split happens on their, if you offer something, how much percentage do they get off of that? So all of that is again going against compliancy. So we're battling a couple of things in the background as we're also setting this up for, just for people to try and test this.
No, that's correct.
I was going to say too, guys, it looks like, the enterprise application really in this space, really applying blockchain allows for those inefficiencies that have been in place that became pretty much, part of the mainstream consciousness, after, 2008's financial crisis. It's exciting that we're able to, potentially get into this space and do something new with a concept that is something we might be familiar with, like, taking probably like taking a mortgage out on your house kind of thing, except this is taking it to a whole nother level where you still have your ownership and you're able to just take parts of your asset and apply it in other ways. So it's exciting that we're able to do some different things in light of this new technology.
Yeah, and we definitely need to do our due diligence, right? First thing we need to do is make sure they're registered with the SEC. Mm-hmm. Check that off the list first and foremost, right?
Right,
yeah. One thing that I do want to add to this is the creativity that this technological development allows is something pretty much we haven't ever seen before. I remember listening to, I think it's Harvard CEO, Josh Stein, and he was discussing, eventually, and understand this, there's a lot of pioneering taking place, like Tawana, when you were talking about earlier, of, there not being a lot of filings outside of Reg D, and yes, Felicia's correct, Blockstack filed under Reg A+. That there is still a lot of pioneering, that's going to take place because we are so early. Yeah. But I remember him talking about this, and some of this, as we're going to have the discussion, it is going to be a bit theoretical, but theoretical in the same sense that real movement is happening towards this. So it's not like a, pie in the sky thing, like real movement is happening towards this. But I remember him speaking about this and talking about, hey, if someone wanted to, and I'm just saying this hypothetically, and this is an example he was using. If the New York Giants decided that they wanted to tokenize a portion of the ownership of the team there, and they offer that out into, security tokens, let's just say, it's going to be $50,000 a token. And let's just say they were going to tokenize a portion of the team is going to be $250 million. Well, there's only so many people on the planet who could afford to stroke that check for $250 million. But if they are going to break that down into tokenized form where each token is $50,000, well, you know what? You could probably find a lot more people who could be and probably would be willing to do that. Now, when I talked about the creative, component to this is in those security tokens themselves, could be built special privileges for the token holders themselves, so they get a chance to visit the players. So, they get, certain meet and greets and that sort of thing. Also, as we talked about smart contracts, they could be built in there. So now you're not having to go through this middleman person's looking at you, go, hey, I don't know, whatever. It's an automatic component, that's built in to the actual token itself. So the creative possibilities of this are pretty endless.